So this is a presentation on the best kept secret in education. I have a feeling some of you already know this. I think some of you are already teaching overseas. But I taught overseas for 20 years, and I think too many teachers burn out in their home countries and they don't know about it. Oh, I wanted to give you this sign-in sheet. I just saw this in the top corner. So I'm going to copy this into the chat if you don't mind. If you don't mind signing in, and then I can also send this to you if you would like to get this sent to you. Okay. Now, oh my goodness. Close that. No, there we go. Okay. So today's presentation will include 10 financial benefits to teaching abroad, 6 steps to finding an international teaching position, and then a Q&A session if we have time, and you can feel free to throw any questions in the chat. These 10 financial benefits are going to be the ideal situation, and a lot of you, if you already know about these benefits, what could be interesting for you is to hear what sort of the maximum is, because I know that very few schools will actually have all the maximum of all of these benefits. So a little bit about me is that I graduated from TCNJ in Mallorca in 2016. I've been overseas for over 20 years, teaching and being in school leadership positions in 6 countries. And I'm now self-employed as an international teacher consultant living in Mexico. And what I do is I help clients, I help teachers and leaders with their CVs, their cover letters, their interview skills, and then I help them find a new position. Not necessarily recruiting, but going to recruitment agencies and finding jobs and then sending them their way. So the 10 financial benefits, these are the 10, and then I'll go over them in detail. So this is kind of like a screenshot, and then I'll go through each one individually. So often the salary is tax-free, or if it's not tax-free, the school will pay the taxes, and then you just never see, you have your take-home pay. So it can be significantly higher than salaries at home. And then the best schools have a transparent salary grid. So where education and then years of experience, and that's the number that you would be coming in. Now, keep in mind that some schools have a salary cap. When you're entering in with many years of experience, they might cap it at 10. And that's quite normal. Another benefit is you have housing and utilities paid for. Again, these are the best top schools. So you might have a choice of housing. They might have some apartments or houses already in their sort of roster, and then they offer that. Or the other option is that they give you a stipend, and then you can find your own housing. Often utilities are paid for. That could be electricity, water, internet, even transportation costs. The annual flight home is usually an economy ticket to your hometown's closest airport. So for that reason, I always suggest to my clients to pick their actual hometown. So for example, if they're from outside of maybe 2 hours away from an airport, it's best to say you're 2 hours away from the airport, because then they might even get you to home, via transportation of some kind. And then for families as well, they often offer the 1 flight per family member. So if you have a trailing spouse, if you have children, these are also included in the benefits. So professional development is often very much supported overseas, especially if you're teaching any of these IB courses, AP, GCSE. They'll send you on workshops, they'll send you on training. You can request that to move into that if that's your goal, to eventually teach in that system, then they can also send you for that. That there's also in-house PD, such, big names like Cat Murdoch or Adaptive Schools. I just threw a couple there, but there's quite a few out there that will come to the school and give their courses. And then there's also international conferences. So NISA, Near East South Asia, ERCOS in Asia, European Council of International Schools. So these big conferences often have really great workshops, and they will send you to that as well. So the PD funding could be very transparent, like a certain amount per teacher, and you have access to that every year, or it could be an application process, in which case you need to then sort of prove how you're going to use the PD to benefit student learning. The fifth benefit would be medical insurance. Oftentimes, like the top schools, again, will have worldwide coverage, including the USA. The next one down would be worldwide coverage without the USA, because it is so expensive to cover, and with no copay. So that's really a benefit to, if you have sudden surgery that you need, or, any glitch happens, you don't have to pay anything in advance. Dental and vision can also be covered for all family members. So again, this is sort of that top tier that you're looking for benefit. And then shipping and settling in allowance. Some schools will give you a shipping allowance, a certain amount of money, and you can hire movers to come in and pack up your whole house. It might not cover everything. It might cover some of it. You might have to pay out of pocket, but then some other schools have a very generous shipping allowance. So it all depends on what that is, and then also getting estimates from the shipping companies. And then you have the settling in allowance is often cash in hand upon arrival at the airport. So you might get a little envelope of local cash, and that's just so that when you've arrived, you can buy groceries, you can go to a restaurant, you can do things right away. So that's a really great benefit. Some schools will give you coaching and activity stipends. So the coaching stipend might be per season. They might pay a little bit more for a varsity coach as opposed to a JV coach. And they also cover those tournament travel costs. So, you might get to do a tournament outside of your country with the team you're traveling with, and all the costs are covered. And then often coaches stay with homestays or with other teachers from that school. So there's no hotel costs. You might also have activity stipends. So after school activities, some schools have sort of they might have it in their contract, you need to offer 10 hours a year of activities. So maybe that's 20 weeks of half an hour. And then anything above that will pay you for that extra time. So that's also a possibility to look into. And if you have children, very often your children's tuition is fully paid. Typically, a teaching couple will get 2 children covered, but I've seen anything from a single mom with 3 kids covered to a teaching couple with 5 kids covered. So it really is a point of negotiating if you have more than 2 children for two teaching couples. And then included in your children's tuition, sometimes you can have the children's meals paid for, their transportation, uniforms, their books, even their activity costs after school if they're taking something special. Something that costs, they might be included. Even field trips might be included. So that's all something that you want to look into. And then the 9th benefit would be some kind of retirement funding or some kind of retirement matching. So I was at a school, for example, that up to a certain percentage, if I invested, then they would match with the same investment. And so that I was doubling my retirement fund. Some other schools will say, we'll pay you a 12-month salary and then a 13th month for every year you work with us. And that would be considered sort of that retirement fund. And then the 10th and last sort of financial benefit of teaching overseas is that you, at, again, the very best schools, you would get a raise every year. And those raises are because if that salary grid, it's, you get another year of experience. If your education goes up, if you take a master's with TCNJ, for example, you get bumped up, but then you also go across in years. And then the other option, or the other possibility, is that you get a re-signing bonus. So typically international schools are a 2-year contract, and then they might say, hey, if you stay with us, we'll give you the signing bonus. And I've actually seen some schools that say, if you sign the initial 2 years and you sign another 2 years, we'll make that bonus even bigger, not even just double, we'll make it even bigger. So there's quite a lot of financial incentive to heading overseas. And so now you might be wondering, well, how can I go overseas, or where can I find these jobs? So these are the 6 steps to finding an international teaching position, and I'm just going to go over them one by one. So the first thing you want to do is get your candidate portfolio materials ready. So a completed CV that's 2 pages. You don't want to go over the 2 pages. You want a cover letter template that's ready to go. And again, that has to be less than 1 page, because very few heads of school and HR departments want to read more than 1 page. And very often they're going to just scan that page anyhow. And then you want to make sure that your teaching degree is ready to go in a PDF. You do need a teaching degree most of the time to head overseas. The very best schools will ask for that. So that can be a Bachelor of Education. It could be a TQS from the UK. It could be a teaching license from the States, Australia, New Zealand. Usually it's one of those English-speaking countries where you're getting your teaching degree or the equivalent from your own home country. But then they will want to see that you can teach in English. So that's the stickler. And then you want to also contact your references, because they're going to be on your CV, and you want to let them know that you're job hunting. So then you can schedule me for some help. If you feel like your CV needs some editing, language or format, if you feel like it needs a refresher, that's what I do. I also do the cover letter, and I read through your cover letter, and then I tweak it, or I might even change it quite drastically, because there is a certain expectation for overseas, what the first paragraph looks like, what the second paragraph is talking about. So I help with that. I can also help with interview prep, and personal one-on-one video consultations are included. So I just want to make sure that I'm not a recruiter. I don't work for schools. I work for teachers. And then you want to do your research. So you want to explore which areas you're open to, and really the more the better. If you're looking to only go to the Czech Republic, it's going to be really tough, because there's only a couple of international schools there. So the bigger region, or the more regions you're open to, the better. And then you want to start thinking about what type of school do you want. So they're all international schools, but they're not necessarily international students in the actual classrooms. So they might be international in name, because they have an international curriculum, they have international staff, but you might be teaching local students. So you want to think about, is it important for me to have a classroom with 40 or 50 different nationalities, not in the classroom, but in the school? Or am I willing to go to a school that has that local, all the local students? And then nonprofit or for-profit is a big contention or a big consideration. Nonprofit is usually investing their money back into the school, into the infrastructure, teachers' salaries, and programs. But for-profit is siphoning off money into the owner's hands, the board, or some kind of big conglomerate. So it's something to weigh. And then I always recommend joining internationalschoolsreview.com. It's only $29, and they have school reviews behind the paid wall, and you take them with a grain of salt. There's a lot of negative ones, but if you do see a lot of negative ones for a school you're considering and they're recent, they're likely true. The ones that are maybe 10 years old, that's a conversation that you can have with people that are there now, if you can reach out to them. And then the fourth consideration is the curriculum being offered. So it might be International Baccalaureate, American, British, Canadian, Australian, Singaporean. There's actually quite a few. And then there could be local, and it could be even a blend of all of those, not all of those, but a lot of those. And that can be very, you know, considering, do you want to go into that situation where you're going to be dealing with a lot of different curriculum? You want to network for leads. So you're a job hunter, you know, use your network. So contact former colleagues, supervisors for job openings. Again, you're mentioning to your references on your CV that you're looking for a job. You want to let your family know, your friends know that you're looking for a new position. You never know who they might know in a network. I would also recommend joining Facebook international teaching groups. There are over 20 of them out there, and you can ask, you know, you can advertise yourself, or you can just start reading what the offers are on those groups. And then I would also consider joining a free or a paid recruiting agency. So I will share this presentation, and then on my website, there's a blog post with all the major recruiting agencies, including the cost and how to contact them. But I think it is a very smart way to go to look for a job, because they've done a lot of the work for you. They have job postings, and then you can start applying through them. So then you want to start your applications. And when you start doing that, I always recommend creating a spreadsheet so that you can track what schools you've applied for, where did you see the position, what is the position, what is the timing of you know, when is the starting date. Sometimes it might be July, it might be August. And then you want to also create a Word document to save any long form answers. Oftentimes, if you're going to the website of the school and you're applying, they might have sort of paragraph questions or long form questions. So I always type those in a separate Word document and save the question and the answers, so that you can go back to that some other time for another application and save yourself some time. You know, you might have to tweak the answer, but at least you've already done the work. You also want to be timely, because positions may fill quickly. You know, often they say, if we find the right candidate, we will shorten the due date. So, you know, it might say open until December, but then they find the best candidate in November and they close it down. So I wouldn't put off any applications to the weekend. I would set aside some time every evening. You know, it can be just a short half hour, an hour, and you're applying for jobs then. And then you want to be thorough and check that all the materials that they've asked are in one PDF, or however they asked to receive them. If they want 3 separate PDFs, the cover letter, the degree, and your CV in 3 separate PDFs, make sure you're reading all those instructions, because you want to make sure that you're doing the best by them. And then you want to follow up. You may not hear back from the school regarding your application. This is normal. But if you do get a response, you want to be timely with your communication. You want to reply within 24 hours. Keep a spreadsheet to track the correspondence as well. And then follow up. If you have started to correspond with them and you don't hear from them, I would wait a couple weeks, but then I would reach out to them. So this is the timeline. I think I'm super over time. I don't even know if I think I'm afraid I'm super over time, but thanks for joining.
Jacqueline, I think you have 5 more minutes.
You have 5 more minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
do I? Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm looking at on my screen, it says 28 minutes. I've been